Okay, we're good to start.
Okay. Well, thank you, Betty, for inviting me to this new virtual style of meetings. And so I'm apologizing ahead of time for how this goes today. Because I want to try to do a workshop to see how that can, you know, not just talking, but a workshop and some songs. And so it's going to be kind of trying to do what I normally would do in a setting, change somewhat. But I've already noticed that the screen lettering, I have no idea, is backwards. That's a technical difficulty. I did not. If anybody knows any ways around that, but
What do you mean that it's backwards?
If you can see behind me, it says "Turning Lost to Legacy." Is it backwards to you, or is it just
No,
me?
no, it is not.
Okay.
But we can't see the whole screen. You need to move slightly.
I'll bring it down, but you can read it.
We can read it.
Oh, good, because to me it's all backwards. Oh my God! So I'm gonna see you completely. Yeah. So,
You're good.
Good. I'm good. Well, I want to start off well, my son Kelly James died 31 years ago this last December, and it's been a long journey. Assimilating that in my life, but I learned a lot in all those years, and it's been many years of trying to comprehend. My father died at 15. When I was 15 years old, my father died of triple bypass surgery. And then 4 years later, my brother, who was in a state hospital for cerebral palsy and severe mental retardation, they called it at the time. And he died in the state hospital 4 years after my father died. And then when I was 29, my twin sister and her two boys, 10 and 9, were killed in a car accident. Oh. And we celebrated our 29th birthday together. We always did our birthdays, my twin sister and I, of course, boy, girl. I had angel food cake and she had devil's food cake. My mother had a real sense of humor, but we had our individual things. And so we had our 29th birthday together, and she said, "Mickey, I've got a set of boy-girl twins at home. I've got 2 boys. I have a wonderful husband. I'm happier than I've ever been." And she goes, "You can turn 30 next year, but I'm going to stay 29 forever." 10 days after she said that, she and her 2 boys were killed in a car accident and left behind the 2 twins. And so I was trying to assimilate that. When my father died, my mom said, "Put it behind you. Big boys don't cry. You grow up. You don't cry." So I didn't grieve for my father. I put it away. Then when my brother died, I didn't really know him. He was put in the hospital when I was a baby, so I never really had the loss to know David. But there's something that I miss still, and then when my twin sister and the 2 boys were killed, I missed that. I just kind of blew everything out of the water. And losing a twin is the closest.
Now you muted that.
Wait.
That we are roommates. We are wombmates, so we knew each other in the womb. So that was another loss. And then I was just trying to assimilate losing my sister and her boys, and my son was diagnosed with a brain tumor 2 years after that. So then 2 years after that, then he ultimately died in 1987 of the brain tumor. And so that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just went into a deep tailspin of depression and drinking. And I really didn't give a rat about living or life. And until I walked by the picture of my son one day, and it's a great big picture that it's on the front of my book. But we had it at the funeral, and I walked by it. This is like 2-3 years out, and I just fell to the floor crying in pain. I in a fetal position on the floor. It was 3 years later, and I could not believe the extent of physical pain that I was feeling this time out. But I looked at him and I said, "I can't do this like my mom said. Put it behind you, buck up and get over it." I said that worked for her and maybe the tragedies that happened in World War II, but it certainly did not work for me. And so I just said, "I'm going to bring you back into my life, Kelly. I want to establish a new relationship." And I got tired of saying I had a son, his name was Kelly. Now I said, I have a son, his name is Kelly. And I'm so proud of so many of you that signed on today, because I listened. And the lion's share of everybody said, my son or my daughter's name is. And 20 years ago, it always was. No one said is. They looked at you, you're crazy if you were identifying them as possibly being coexisting with us in some fashion that we can. But our child dies a second time when no one says their name. So I encourage people to say the name, ask how they're doing. You know, that is proactive grieving. And that's what I want to talk about today, was keeping them alive, turning that loss into a legacy that we can identify, other people can identify with our child's life by the way we live ours, because we become their voice, we become their hands, we become their everything. There's no reason we got to put a black cloak over their picture in the hallway, or not speak their name, or, you know, those were dark days where people could not grieve, but yet they had rituals to grieve. And then we come to a modern society where the rituals are gone, people don't say anything, and so it's put it up, put it away, get over it, and start a new life. And that's just not the way it is. Now we're in the new millennium, and people, we can see with TCF and the Compassionate Friends what they have done to bring grief in the mainstream and make it an active part of life. It just doesn't happen and go away. It's the rest of our lives. And so if you having trouble 2 years out, I hear, look, a lot of people are 2, 3, 5, some very in their first year of loss, and some are 19 years out. So there's a big difference, but it's our rest of our life. It changes, it ebbs and flows, but it does not go away. The pain softens, but so there's many avenues to be able to try to work that out. But I mean, I don't want to tell people that I wasted 5 years of my life with a case of PBR every night, you know, and I was destroying myself and my body and my mind, and because I wanted the pain to end. I just wanted the pain to end. And my wife, I even talked about doing a Thelma and Louise. We have a daughter at home, you know, that was 5 years old when he died. And we said, we're good. I said, we'll go off a cliff. Someone will take care of Megan. You know, we have a good, large family. And I cannot believe that we actually had that conversation. And of course we didn't act that, we didn't do it, but I'm telling you honestly that we entertained the thought. And so it's not crazy if you've had entertaining the thoughts of ending your own life because it hurts so bad, because it does hurt bad. But, you know, we have the strongest survival instinct in the world as a human being. It takes a lot to take us to end our own life. So there's many, many ways to get through this journey. And there's a book called A Case Against Happiness. You know, that be in your despair. Swim in your sorrow, experience the grief. Let's not put on a happy face and pretend what do we say every time someone says, how are we doing? Fine. Everybody says, I'm fine. Well, we're not fine. We're lying through our teeth. So we try to be honest with people. So I want to start off with a song. Now, this is an experiment too. I don't sing, but I sign language songs. And I don't know if anybody's heard of Denise Gagnon. If you've been to some of the conferences, she's a bereaved mom that I've met about 5 years ago, or 4 years ago. She was about 5 years, 4 years out in her loss when I met her. And we've talked a lot. We're good friends, and we talk a lot. And she's written some songs, some poems that I've written and been inspired. And she finally said she wanted to write a song for me about Kelly and myself. And I said, I just told her, I said, I'll meet him there. I can wait. I have grandchildren now, and I used to not give a rip about my life or how I felt or how I physically felt in early days, but grandchildren really helped me out of that, or whatever we can find in our life to give us a focus that we can still talk about our child and keep them alive with them and share that life with them. And sharing that with my granddaughter. And it helped. My granddaughter was born on my son's anniversary day, on the 23rd angel day. So that helped my grief a lot. And so I told Denise, I said, I can't wait to meet Kelly there. You know, I'll live here as long as I can and do the best I can, but I'm not afraid of going. And if that happens, I will, you know, it's a win-win. I can still have my grandchildren, my daughter, and the joy we have in life, but I anticipate a grand reunion that I will meet him there. So I'm going to play this song called I Meet You There, that she wrote for me and Kelly. If I can get my technology to work.
Battery 70%. Connected to Rich's iPod.
Here I am in this dimension, you're on the other side. Sometimes the pain's too much, and I just wanna hide. That's when I close my eyes, and I can feel you moving towards me. As I see you coming closer, I can almost hold you. That's where I wanna be. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there. Where rainbows don't need the rain, and I can be with you again. Oh, I'll meet you there. Out in the great somewhere, I'll meet you there. Remember how we used to wonder when we wished on stars for what was way out there, and how it felt like ours. It was a perfect world where we could see forever. Now I just can't stop believing, even though I'm grieving, I can still be with you. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there. Where rainbows don't need the rain, and I can be with you again. Oh, I'll meet you there. Out in the great somewhere, I'll meet you there. You'll always be in my life. Love never dies. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there. Where rainbows don't need the rain, and I can be with you again. Oh, I'll meet you there. Out in the great somewhere, I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there.
Denise Gagnon.
Battery 70%.
So that's where I look forward to someday, that I'll meet with my son. But until that day, I've got a lot of work to do here. And from what I've done these past 30 years, I can see a lot of things that do work and a lot of things do not work. And so I want to share with you some of the things that have worked for me. There's a lot of things that I'd like to go over with you all, but we just don't have time to do it all today. So this is kind of a primer of the many things that I do. And we may someday, I'd like to do this again, maybe do something on Whispers of Love and everybody share their signs. But we're going to be talking about those too. That's really an important part of it. Let's see if I can get my screen back here. Trouble seeing. Can you see that? Nope. Oh, I can turn it. There we go. Let me turn it. There we go.
Okay, there you go.
All this.
Now we got.
And everything's backwards. I'm trying to get it into view. Can you see it okay?
Yep.
Okay. Now I can get the. Okay. Okay, so this is Turning Loss and Legacy, that the story continues. Can you see the whole full screen, or is it just a little screen? Okay, you can. Okay. Good. And I'm just trying to get this mouse to work. There we go. I think I can do that. So it's Turning Loss and Legacy. The story continues. It's becoming an intentional survivor. That we make an intention that we are going to survive this. And like I say, we may not want to, and it's going to be very challenging. but we have so many capabilities within us to be able to survive this journey. So reality leaves a lot to the imagination. John Lennon said that. So be your best resource. Grieve out of the box. Grieve way you think you might want to grieve, not what people should on you and say, this is what you should be doing by now, or this is what you've done by now. Or people will say, sometimes they think like we're a year down the road that we make that mark, that somehow it's magically gone, you know? And sometimes it's not 5 years before you even have a semblance of feeling some walk neck and neck with others in the world, because those first 5 years are I'm not sugarcoating it. It's a long process. We grow all over again. We start all over again in like real life years. You know, when we're that first year that we're grieving, and there's some here today, that you cry all the time. No one understands you. You can't understand other people. You can't sleep at night. You don't know what you want to eat. Your stomach hurts all the time. Does that sound like an infant? It's an infant, and we are an infant in our first year in life. We're just as vulnerable as an infant baby starting all over again in real years, and we hurt, and all we want is our mommy to hold us. And we don't have that, so we do the best I can. We think we get to that first year, we're going to make it. Then we go into the terrible twos. And the second year is worse than the first, where the cards have stopped, the casseroles have stopped, the people think we're doing okay, and we're lying, point to their face, we're doing okay, and we're not doing okay. And so we're falling down, we're getting up, we're tumbling, we're like a toddler in our grief. So the first couple of years, we're toddlers, like a toddler, trying to find anonymity again. And not to maybe we're 5 years old, like a 5-year-old child finally goes to have some friends and say, like my granddaughter, when she was 3 or 4 years old, Papa, 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 help me. Papa, Papa, do this. Papa, do this. Then she turns 5. Papa, I don't need that. I have friends. I'm in school, you know. And she's gaining autonomy. She's functioning on her own again without other people having to help everything. And so we look at ourselves in 5 years down the road, and we're starting to function again. But I didn't write my book until I was 17 years old, till I was a teenager in my grief. And so I look at those actual years as being real years. Now I'm 31 years old, and I've lived a long life being bereaved, and I've acclimated to it. I'm not over it. I've just acclimated to it. And we can use that in our life. We can gain a lot of strength and a lot of tools on this journey that we can propel our life to not only survive, but to actually thrive again. And you don't even think about thriving in those early days. You just want to survive. You just want to get to the next moment. And unfortunately, it's like Groundhog's Day. And you wake up every morning and, oh my God, they're dead. Every morning you wake up and open your eyes, the first thought is that your child has died. But that ebbs through the years. I remember when I got to the coffee pot and I said, oh my God, Kelly's dead. But I made it from the bed to the coffee pot and before I thought about it. So it does change through the years. So it just be your resource. Help yourself. Use your tools that you have. This is a drawing. I don't know if you can see the drawing real good, but it's my granddaughter did it. And when she was, I have 2 granddaughters now, 14 and 10. The 10-year-old was born on my son's Angel Day. The 14-year-old was I can remember her March 4th. And anyway, that 1 year, about 5 years ago, Grandma Clara had died, and they were first death that they really, trying to comprehend that they loved Grandma Clara. Then the same year, Louise, our dog that we had, a husky, had died. We had to put it down because it got into our pasture and killed one of our goats. And so we had no choice. But the girls were just devastated that they put down. We had to actually put down this wonderful dog. And then our basset hound died from old age, and we had to bury it. So we had a farm, so we buried all the animals up in the pet cemetery, and so that they could see them. And we put a stone, and we had a funeral when they died. And then, so we didn't have any animals. We had horses, but the girls wanted to have a dog, and my daughter, nope. I said, nope, we're not doing more dogs. We've had enough dogs, and so they bought her a cat. And she had the cat the kitty for the summer. And the first day of school in September, she's waiting for the bus. And mom, she says, here, mom, hold the kitty. I got to get on the bus. Gives mom the cat. She gets on the bus. Mom sets the cat down. The cat runs after the bus and ran underneath the back tires and was killed. So my daughter calls me and said, Dad, what should I do? What do I tell my daughter? I said, tell her the truth. Don't make up any stories. Tell her the cat ran underneath the bus and was killed. And so she did. I said, we sugarcoat and don't tell the truth to a lot of kids to protect them in our society. When kids know, they hear everything and they get the wrong information from hearing mom or neighbors talking, or they pick it up. So let's give them the right information. And so let them participate. So they came over the next day. We had a funeral for the cat. We burned some sage. We played one of Alan Peterson's songs, and we buried Emma. And then my granddaughter came down and drew this picture. I call it Proactive Grieving because she has Louise, Grandma Claire, Lola, Uncle Kelly, and Emma on the Rainbow Bridge going up to heaven. And she says, you know, this is the day after. I'm so sad. I miss Emma. I love Emma. But she goes, I'm so happy for Grandma Clara and Kelly because they get to hold Emma. So that's a different perspective, that she has been growing up with proactive grieving, that she knows, that's all she's known, that you identify loss, it happens, and you live with it and you work with it and you don't forget them. And they still talk about Emma, but that Emma's with Kelly. So it's all being that proactive, taking the bull by the horns and being proactive with your grief. There's an old phrase called Trotzdem Jasum liegen sagen, which is German for nevertheless say yes to life. This was the original title for Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that book. It's an old book, but it's a good one to check out. It's been around for a long time. He survived World War II in the concentration camps. And he said, everything can be taken from a person but one thing, the last of human freedoms to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And that's where we find ourselves in grief. Everybody wants us to change. They want the old Mitch back. My buddies want the old golfing Mitch back. Well, that old Mitch is not coming back. I don't go golfing anymore. It's just everything changed in my life. You know, I was an Apple 81 when Kelly died. Now I'm a Windows 10. You know, you keep moving up, upgrading your system to meet the times of the day. And so that's what we do. We upgrade and to keep abreast of what's going on in the grief world. And because when we're thrust into grief, we are thrust into cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological term where we used to line up to the comforting lies sign, I'm fine. The unpleasant truth line is our loved one dies. And no one wants to get in the our loved one dies line. They get into the I'm fine line. And that's cognitive dissonance because we have two conflicting thoughts in our brain. No, they're not dead. Yes, they're dead. No, they're not dead. It's like being at a stop sign with a red light and a green light at the same time. Your brain doesn't know what to do. So when you're feeling that frustration and anxiety and our grief, it's a normal feeling. Our body, mind, and soul and spirit are in turmoil when we are in grief. So I call it proactive grieving. It's not going through the 5 stages, but it's taking critical steps one at a time on your time. For years, all we had in the past, and maybe some of the you people that have had losses 20 years ago may have just, the only lot of resource we had was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which was Death and Dying. And it was originally written for the dying. When my son died, I went through denial, when he was diagnosed, denial, anger, bargaining, acceptance. And I went through those stages, but a stage implies a linear progression. And that was in the diagnosis that he was dying. Yes, we went through a linear progression. But in grief, there is no linear progression. It's all over the map. So, people get frustrated being, well, I'm not in depression or I'm not in anger right now, or some people have never been in anger, but yet they feel, why am I not angry? Am I not grieving right? So it's not a one size fit all. So I wanted to come up with something that actually would fit the bereaved parent's journey more appropriately, and I call it the STAIRS modality of grieving. It's an acronym for STAIRS, all which stands for one stairs, a step that we go through, not a stage, but a step. We can skip a step. We can go to the top of the stairs. We can come back to the stairs. We maybe get to the top, almost to the top of the stairs, and the next morning we're at the bottom of the stairs again. And that's okay. Every staircase is different for every person. So we look at the first step is shock. Unilaterally, we go into shock. Our body gets numb from the hormones. They say if our body did not go into shock, that we would absolutely go mad, because the numbness, the hormones put us in a state that we don't feel the intensity of the pain. Otherwise, it's too much, because there's things we have to do. We have to function. It's an autonomic system. Whether we're a Neanderthal or a modern person, we got other things to do, to take care of our other children, take care of our home, go hunting. I mean, there's things that we need to do to survive. So our body helps us be able to do that. But it doesn't take away the grief. The grief is still there. So when the shock starts to wear off, as it does naturally, we enter into trauma, full-blown trauma. It's like when we have the earthquake that hit a country, and that's the shock wave. What happens after the earthquake? The tsunami comes, and that tsunami is what takes our life. It wipes out everything we knew. And we can live in that rubble. We can rebuild again and live in the rubble, or we can take that rubble and build into something bigger and better and stronger than we ever were, but it takes a long time. So, but the trauma is there, and that's what we live in most of the time. After the shock wears off, we live in that trauma. And I've seen people in trauma for 10 years until we go to the third step, which is acceptance. And that is a hard term, acceptance, for people to, a lot of people don't like that word. They will acknowledge it, but I'll never accept the death of my child. And it's not talking about accepting the death or how they died or why they died. It's accepting the challenge to survive. Like a president accepts the presidency. You may not agree with the politics, but you accept the job. So this is the job. Our job is to survive, to create a legacy for our child, to keep their voice alive in the world. That's the acceptance part. So it's a challenge. It's a big challenge, but many people have done it in the past, and we can learn from those that have walked this path before us. Then we go to the fourth step, introspection. We look inside ourselves, find out what gifts we have, what talents we have, what deficiencies we have, what can't we get done. Ask other people into our fold. Ask people to help us. There's no shame in asking. It allows them to participate, and people feel better when they help each other. So it's a win-win when we ask people to help. It's helping them, and it's helping us. So don't be afraid to ask for help and find out what you're good at. I was never going to be a writer. I wrote in high school, but I never took any writing classes. I was never going to be a speaker. I didn't even like debate class. But I found out that in proclaiming the love for my son, I found out that I could be a speaker, and I had a lot of depth of love, and I've learned a lot. So I started using what I found in my introspection and applied it and reinvested the R in the stairs, the reinvestment, the renaissance, the rebuilding of your life. And so we can reinvest in a whole new future that coexists with our loved one in a non-physical way. And that is a challenge, but it can be done. The last step is serenity. That hopefully if we go through all these steps and reach one of these, and through the years, we can attain serenity. And because joy is our birthright. We are born to feel happy, born to feel joy, just like a baby is. I mean, all they know is joy and comfort. And so we can have that someday. Hopefully we can get there someday. So how do we get there? I call the 4 pillars of equilibrium. That every human being has the quality that we have that will help us survive this journey, or not survive the journey. We don't identify all these components. The first is the body. Our body. That's the vehicle that gets us from place to place. Then we have the mind. That's our brain. That's that we think with. We have spirit. That is what our connection with God, our connection with the universe, the energy that animates us. And then we have soul. What is soul? Soul is in the driver's seat. Soul is the decision maker. Soul is the choice point maker when we have choices in our life. Soul is the one that makes the decision from input it gets from body, mind, and spirit. So if you look at it as a correlation between a car, the body is like the car of an automobile car. It gets us somewhere. The mind is the ignition system and the computer that runs the car, the dashboard. Spirit, obviously, is the gasoline, the energy that animates the vehicle, that, like the spirit of the universe that animates us from God. And then we have soul. Who's driving the car? Soul is driving the car. So we drive the car, we listen to the blinker, we turn, we apply the brake, we apply the gas, all from the input that we get from body, mind, and spirit. So when we find, the goal is to have balance in all these four areas to be able to survive and to even thrive. And that doing that is integrating the loss into our life to find that important critical balance. Because we're in one, as a lot of people, if people have no spiritual, they say they're an atheist. I'm not judging anybody, but if somebody doesn't have that spiritual connection, they may have a harder time processing their grief, because you can sit on a three-legged stool, but a four-legged stool is much sturdier. So you can survive, but to really thrive, I believe you need that spiritual piece to identify that connection and integrate that into our loss and find that balance. Whether we can do it through body, we can do it through any of the different, we can do it in all ways, but it's important, I think, initially to do things with your body, because your body can help you so much if you allow it and find that balance. And between men and women, we have yin and yang. Men and women grieve differently. We grieve differently because we have different hormones. We grieve because we grew up differently. We were raised differently. Nature versus nurture is different. The genes are different. Everything's different. We have a common loss of love and the commonality that we had a child together, but we have difference in how we process that. And so that's how we, and how we communicate with each other. What are we saying without saying a word? One of the most important things now, I have a friend who's a psychologist, and I just had him on my radio show the other day, and he's talking about countenance is one of the most important things that they're now finding, especially with Zoom meetings now, because people are doing Zoom meetings. He is a psychologist doing his Zoom meetings with his clients. And he thought, how is this going to be awful? I can't be in the same room. I can't be in the same energy field with them. How can I help them? But yet, instead of them lying on a couch and him sitting in the side, he's looking at their face in this camera. He sees their twitches. He sees their eyes wince. He sees the tears well up. He sees them clenching their teeth. He sees them doing nervous things. That is communicating. Only 7% of what we say is the vocal word. 38% is the tone of our voice, the inflection that we use. And that's why texting is so bad. You don't know what people are saying without inflection. So we came up with emoticons that help give inflection, because we need that. 55% is body language, and that we can still see on Zoom. And so if we look at the negative of this pandemic, there are a lot of positives coming out of it. I work with a funeral home in town. He said older people that are stuck in nursing homes, or maybe before the pandemic, couldn't go see their loved one because they're incapacitated who had died. Now they can Zoom, they can see them. It's just amazing things that are happening that in this whole Zoom world that'll help us through this. And communication is one of them. We can still communicate. We can't hug. That is the hardest part. But I think it's even, my granddaughter was over this weekend. It's safer to hug than it is to shake hands. You know, your hands got all the bugs on them. If you hug and wash your hands, it's actually safer. So and my granddaughter and I were both tested, so it was nice to have her over again. So I just have to say that, because I'm kind of reeling from having her over here for 3 days. And I love it. So what are we saying without a word? Is there any male differences and brain differences? Well, a man, look at the big loads. Sex, beer, sex, food, TV, beer, football. A woman's brain, babies, talk, respect, shoes, security, and love. I mean, this is very simplified, obviously, but there are differences between male and female brains. and between left and right hemispheres of our brain. You know, more people are, your right brain is the bigger picture, observation, music, shapes, patterns, subtle things. The left brain is more mathematical, strategies, order thinking, and more men are left brain. More women are right brain. And actually, women have have centers on both sides for comprehension, where men only have on the left brain. So we have to really work to get our right brain to work. This is all just, you know, biology. And I see you looking at your husband. So female, these are listed in order of how they happen. Women are more sensitive, warm, they have more apprehension, more tension, more self-reliance, more liveliness, and more abstracted thinking. Where men are more dominant, they have emotional stability, everything's gonna be cool. Rule consciousness, they like the rules, they follow the rules most of the time. Vigilance, openness to change, privateness, and perfectionism. These men, you can see my wife say, oh yeah, every one of these. So we cross over because we have hormones on each side. So we can blend with each other. We learn from each other what works in the grief journey. So we really help each other to steal what works from our spouse. And because sometimes it does not come naturally. So when men are stressed, they go away and reflect and search for solutions out in the garage, or they go hunting, or they just want that alone time to reflect, and they don't want to sit and talk about it. Where women talk in great detail about her problems with everybody they can. And this is, again, these are generalizations, but it does happen a lot. And so there are differences, and so you go with the differences, you go with your strong suit. I lost my mouse there. I put a piece of tape on it so I can see it. It's the hormones that we have. Testosterone we all have. Estrogen and prolactin. Oxytocin and cortisol. We're familiar with testosterone and estrogen. We all have those. But women have more levels of estrogen and prolactin. And women produce more oxytocin for a mother. And prolactin, when a mother has a lot of she has a child, she has a lot of prolactin levels. A woman with child, if she is nursing and she hears a baby in a restaurant crying, she may start to lactate. Her body reacts to the baby crying with the high levels of prolactin in the system. So that we all different. So women do cry more because they have more oxytocin. And the two, oxytocin and cortisol, are the two most important things in grief to remember. Cortisol is killer cortisol. That is a stress hormone. It turns presidents gray in 4 years. That's the stress hormone when people come back from PTSD, that we are at high levels of cortisol. That's what causes PTSD. It does a lot of change in the brain. Oxytocin is a love hormone that you get when you pet a kitty or you see a baby and you hold them and rock them. You get filled with oxytocin. When you watch a Hallmark movie, I cannot watch a Hallmark movie anymore without crying. I think you start to build up brain chemistry to be able to produce more of the oxytocin. So there's things that we can do to produce that. And I think it's like priming the pump. That's why I watch Hallmark. It helps. Once the pump starts going, I start to cry. So in emotions, women are faster, more accurate in identifying emotions. And this is pretty redundant here. I'm going to skip this one. But there is a physical difference. On average, women cry once a week. Men cry once a month. But we have two different glands, the lacrimal gland and this sac here. Women have a very small lacrimal gland. So when they cry and they said, I can't hold back my tears, they can't, because they can't hold back the tears. The tears are producing and their sac lets it out because they cry on a dime because they can't hold it back. Now men have a much larger lacrimal duct and they can hold back their tears. And that's why when men are going to cry, they usually gulp. They gulp, and some of the tears go back down the throat because they can store it more, and they get through that position and then not cry. But it produces a lot of cognitive dissonance in our bodies when men or women do that as well. When we try to stuff it, then we cause more problems, and we have the fight or flight response and the rest and digest going back and forth, and it really puts us into our body into a tailspin. So women, again, cry more. Women cry more sad tears. Men cry more glad tears. Women cry more at a sad movie. Men cry when their football team wins. That's it. You know, it happens. The tears are coming down. Yeah, they won. They're real tears, but they're oxytocin. If you did a titration of those tears, they would be just part oxytocin. If you a woman crying over the loss of a child, they're filled with cortisol. Why we cry is to get rid of the cortisol. That's what turns us gray. It hurts our bodies. So we cry on purpose. We need to get rid of that cortisol because it damages our whole system. If we're in levels of hypertension all the time, a fight or flight response, animals do it to get out of the situation and then they stop. We in stress, we're continually in the flight or flight. We don't go into that rest and digest spot, which we desperately need. So it's identifying that we're in that physical. And when we have PTSD, or whether from grief or from in the service, our brain changes. Our hippocampus gets much larger. I mean, in the grief brain, the hippocampus is small. That's where the good memories. The hippocampus is called hippocampus for horse because it looks like a seahorse. So it starts to shrink all the good memories because the amygdala contains all the bad memories and all the PTSD memories that are stored in the amygdala. And it's shaped like an almond, which is amygdala. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the hippocampus gets smaller. When we do Tai Chi or we do mindfulness training with a candle or relaxation techniques or talk therapy, then we start to reduce the size of the amygdala to a normal, small, tiny almond, and the hippocampus gets larger again and stores more good memories, not confined with this grief brain. So we try to get the grief brain back to a mindfulness brain, because this is all happening on the inside that no one sees, we don't see, we may not even feel it, but we see the results of it happening. So we have two brains. Many people don't know this too. I've been studying this for a long time because for all the years of early grief, I took care of a spirit, mind, and soul. But I let my body go to hell. And I was up to 235 pounds. I'm now back because I took my body back because I found out that there's so many things going on in grief with our body. Our brain, we have two brains. Our brain functions, but we have as many neurons in our gut as we do in our brain. That our gut is actually a secondary brain. It has the vagus nerve connects the two brains together. So when we say we've got a gut feeling, that is a gut thinking, and it's actually thinking. It sends a signal to the brain, and the brain sends one back down, and so that whole hormone thing goes back and forth from our two brains. And so why it's important in grief to eat healthy, to keep our brain and our body are in sync and helping and supporting each other. Now I go back to the body, mind, soul, and spirit. If you look at this as like a tabletop, at the top of the table is you and resilience, finding resilience in your life. And we have the four: spirit, body, mind, soul, and spirit again. Spirit is the collective unconsciousness, the purposefulness that we all share together, that connection that we share as a herd animal, that we are a herd animal, we are a tribe. So that's where we are connected there. Our mind, and that's the collective unconscious by Jung, but in the mind is our confidence and our superego, which overrides everything. It's a superego, it rides ego. Our ego is our body, it's adaptability, it's the id. We just function. Soul supports our social ego. We get social support system from everybody we talk to. So we have body, mind, soul, and spirit all trying to come together for resilience to give us a better chance at survival. So where are you as a griever? Now, I'm going back. I went on a lot about the body, and I'm probably going to be going back and forth here. But looking at the people that have joined us today, where are you as a griever? You're going to fit into one of these five. You're either going to be a raw griever, which I've seen a few here today, where the loss is recent, your heart is newly broken, and you're probably in shock and in full-blown trauma. The frozen griever is complicated grief, hard as patch, possible PTSD. You're putting it away. You put it on a shelf. A lot of reluctant grievers will put their grief on a shelf. When my twin sister died, I put that grief, because then my son was diagnosed with cancer. So I put my grief for my twin sister on the shelf so I could process the grief for my son. It was years later when I went to a Twinless Twin conference 7 years ago that I finally could grieve fully for my twin sister, because I had grieved for my son, but I had never gone back. And so it's never too late to go back. I called the man that I found his name that killed her in the car accident. 20 years later, I found his name out and I called him, and we talked and we relieved anxiety and pain for each other. And it was a wonderful thing to do. So it's never too late to work on your journey if you think you haven't done enough. So if a reluctant griever, you can be the rest of your life. Or proactive grievers, what I'm talking about here is being proactive, an intentional survivor where your heart has been repurposed. If we break a toy, what do we do with a toy? We either put it on the shelves, we fix it. Well, there's no fixing grief. We can put it on the shelves, or we repurpose it. Instead of recycling, we repurpose. So we can repurpose our heart in a different direction. Then we are the seasoned griever. That's like I'm 30 years out. I'm a seasoned griever. I have found equilibrium. My heart is expanded, and I'm experiencing post-traumatic growth. And so if you have wood, if anybody knows anything about wood or building, raw wood is full of moisture. You cannot build with it. You cannot burn it. You can't do anything with it. It just twists and bends. Like our grief, we are raw in our grief because we become a seasoned griever, like seasoned wood. Seasoned wood can be built. It's firm. It's strong. It can multiple purposes because it has reached equilibrium with the outside atmosphere. The moisture content of the wood is equal to the moisture content of the air. That is equilibrium. So when we as a griever reach equilibrium with the fortune of others out there, that's when we find balance. That's when we become a seasoned griever. Okay, we've reached balance. With others out there, we're back functioning again in life, and we can help others with what we've learned, and we've accommodated and assimilated the grief into our life proactively. So the power of vulnerability. Who am I? Just who am I as a griever? So I'm going to play. This is the 20 Faces of Grief. And I don't know if anybody's seen these, but normally it's a workshop that I go through one at a time and try to name. Oh, here it goes. We try to name each emotion. Look at the pictures, but this is a song by Disturbed. Can you hear that? I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly left its scenes while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets and cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stared by the flash of a neon light that split my mind and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people moving. People talking without speaking. People hearing Powerful song. Huh?
Yes.
And it's interesting on the how everything ties together on our grief journey through the years too. That whatever we do now, if we look at the things we do every day, that everything is not unimportant. There's many things that will come back and say, wow, why did I do that? Why did we, where I start drawing each one of those pictures. It took me a couple years and I just didn't know what I was going to do with them until I was going to use them in a workshop. And so I do the faces of grief. And I actually made some cards to use, and like they use in some counseling situations, they'll actually have these on cards and they'll pass them out and play games with them, or just to instill talk. And then I donated them 8 years ago to Bob Resiniti, a dear friend of mine whose son died 12 years ago, and started a foundation in Florida called the Bobby Resiniti Healing Hearts Foundation. He's been doing a walk and a fundraiser. He's got almost $1 million budget from donation and fundraising. So he's built a place called Bobby's Place that any bereaved parent can come anytime during the week and get free psychological counseling, free grief counseling in the whole area. All they have to do is go there and call and make an appointment. And the staff has been there for several years now. And it's actually only a half a mile from Parkland School. And I donated these things 8 years ago. So the students at Parkland and MSD Douglas and the teachers and staff have been there and getting free help at Bobby's Place. I've been down there 3 times and talked to some of the students in the school and at Bobby's Place. And so there's so many things that we can do to help each other with the experiences that we had to help each other. So it's just one avenue.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you tilt your screen just a tad? When you have white up there, it's washed out. We can't really see and read that part.
Let's see.
Like tilt it down, maybe. Can you tilt down?
I think, I think I lost my connection here. It's the white contrast. I tried to change the resolution on my TV, which did for most of it, but some of the white stuff. It's just showing a picture of Da Vinci's body right here.
Okay.
This rest should be better. You can see
That's
the pencil.
good.
This is body. I mean, the body doesn't know a difference. So if we're sad, we can put a pencil in our mouth and our muscles think they're smiling, and it actually makes you feel better. If you and you see like students or people thinking, they'll put a pencil in their mouth, or they're nervous, they'll bite their knuckle. That is helping the body. We don't even know that what we're doing, but it does help the body. This is just showing. I've had people in the workshop stand up there and they start laughing and feel good because they feel like an idiot anyway. But it does make a difference in your body. And water. These are just very basic things. I'm talking about the body, mind, soul, and spirit. So this is the body. That we do not hydrate enough. We don't breathe enough. We need to breathe and hydrate. We need to breathe breathe deeply, diaphragmatically, not with we tend to, when we're grieving, we go into the fetal position somewhat, and we go inward. So our intercostal muscles on our lungs do not let us take full breath. So, but like babies breathe with their tummy, we breathe diaphragmatically, we're going to get a lot more breath in our lungs. And so that helps a lot. And to calm yourself, to do the 4-7-8 method of breathing. You breathe in really slowly, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe in 4 seconds, hold it for 7 seconds, and then let it out for 8 seconds. You do 10 breaths like that, you reset the frontal lobe of your brain if it's locked up, you slow your heart rate down, you slow your blood pressure down. That's doing 4-7-8. Kind of like smoking a cigarette. I mean, the action is anyway. Hydrate often. Drink as much water as you can. 8 by 8 rule. See, there you go. You're drinking Betty, you're drinking water right now. Or is that a gin and tonic? The
Iced
8
tea.
by 8 rule. 8 glasses, 8-ounce glasses a day. I know that's hard to do, but I try to do as much as I can and drink a lot of, because when we're dehydrated, that can lead to more depression. If we don't have enough oxygen, we're apoxic. It can lead to depression. So if you're smoking cigarettes and taking medication that reduces the oxygen level, you're sedentary, you're in the fetal position, you're not getting enough air, it's just setting us up for make it easier for depression to set in from our body. This way we're treating our body. And that's just in breathing and in water. So breathe the 4-7-8. Breathe with intention. And when you breathe, just silently say to yourself, I breathe in relaxation, I hold all love, I breathe out all tension. And you say those things, and then our body will believe it. We have to be convincing with ourselves and actually do it. Fuel that we have, our body, nutrition, we need body, mind, and social well-being. We need social well-being. It's a nutrition part of our life. We need our mind is a nutrition part of our life, to learn and to investigate. And our body obviously needs nutrition. But we have grief food. What do we want when we're grieving? We want mac and cheese and salty chips, burgers and cheese, ice cream and chocolate covered chips. And I mean, like Darcy Sims used to say, the best grief food was a chocolate covered potato chip, but that's really not, that's what we go for, but it's not the right grief food. Though chocolate does have an effect on the body in a positive way. So chocolate is within reason, it's good for our system. Certainly not these other ones. Healing food, probiotics, yogurt, Greek yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha. I don't know if anybody makes any of these, but since I've started my whole new life for physical bodies, 3 years now, I've been making my own sauerkraut, my kimchi, kombucha, kefir, and my own yogurt. And I make my own sourdough bread.
I was just going to say starter bread.
Yeah, did you get some starter?
No, I didn't get it, but I saw you doing it, and I'd love to do it.
Okay, if anybody, oh my God, my granddaughter was over. We made 2 huge loaves today, and they're so good. And she said, Papa, I won't eat any bread from the store. Are you kidding me? I only like Papa's bread. And so it helped. I sent it to 50 people, that starter, which came from 1847 originally in our family. And so it's just so cool to be able to spread the joy, in certain ways. And it helps to keep you healthy, because we need those bugs in our system. We need the good bugs. And that's the gut brain, because we need the good bugs, because whenever we keep a healthy microbiota, flora and fauna in our system, we are going to have a better, brighter brain. So it's what we put into our body. And we drink a lot of alcohol, that kills the good bugs. If we take a lot of medication, kills the good bugs. So I make sure to have sauerkraut juice every day, because I do have a beer every day. So I like to have my beer once, not like I did before, but I still like to have a beer. And I do love my sauerkraut, and I know it helps. The sun, easy as that. People say in the old days, when someone was upset, what do they say? Have a glass of water, go for a walk. It all does good things. The water hydrates you. Going for a walk. When you go for a walk, the whole EMDR movement, I don't know if everybody heard of EMDR, it's eye movement, rapid desensitization of the to help people in PTSD. Started for a woman who went for a walk at a park where there was flowers along both sides of the sidewalk for a long while. She felt so good that she realized, the bilateral stimulation. When you're going for a walk, you're getting bilateral stimulation, stimulating both sides of the brain, reducing anxiety, and you feel better. So it's going for a walk, you're breathing, you have to breathe more when you walk, you get thirsty when you walk, and above all, you get vitamin D. Our country is so deprived, especially with people putting sunscreen on all the time, and that all we need is 10 to 15 minutes of sun a day. We have all the vitamin D we need from 15 minutes in the sun. You cannot take enough supplements. If you eat enough salmon, which is high in vitamin D, you have mercury poisoning to equal the amount you get in the sun. Because the sun is it hits your skin. It's the vitamin D. It actually turns our cholesterol. The sun hits our bodies, and turns the cholesterol in our system into vitamin D, which we absorb. So that's why we feel so good when we're in the sun. We feel so good at the beach. There's so many things why we feel good. The beach is another thing because they're the circadian rhythm of the ocean is another thing that kind of puts us in beat with the planet, which also kind of restores that calmness that we can have. So keep your face in the sunshine. You cannot see a shadow. Helen Keller. Go for a walk, whatever it takes, just a little walk. Sit on a bench. So we have the mind, body. We talk about body, mind, soul, and spirit. The mind we can educate and journal. I don't know how many people journal. We'll do a Q&A after this, but to journal, if I had not, my wife and I had not journaled, I never would have written my book, and I never would have been doing this today because we chose to journal. We learned to journal when he had cancer to keep track. And so when he died, we kept up that skill that we learned from that. And that is one difference. There's no difference between losses, how we lose our child in our life. But one difference in losing, having a long-term illness is that you learn some tools in dealing with grief and journaling, and you pick up some tools. That's about the only difference that I can see. That it doesn't prepare you for the loss, but it gives you tools for the journey later on. So you journal, you educate yourself. You go to workshops, you read books, you go read blogs. So now we finally, those are all the body, mind, soul, and spirit. I know I'm going rapidly here, but I want to get into spirit, and that's where we talk a little bit about our continuing connections. That faith and the hope that we'll see our loved one, our child again someday. And those continuing connections I call whispers of love, that the story continues, that we do and can maintain a relationship on the other side. And there's many different ways to do that. It's just being open and aware, to be aware of things. There's an example, I don't know if you can see all these stones. Can you even read the words on them?
Yes.
But it's just my wife and I, we had some friends from Chicago that are bereaved parents. And it's amazing the bereaved parent network we have in this country. Then I can go to almost any city and stay at someone's house. Or we've had people from staying in our house from almost any city. And they're from Chicago, good friends of ours. They lost their only daughter. They live down from the street from the cemetery. They go to the cemetery every single day. They put stuff at the cemetery, lights and milkshakes and milk duds, and they do whatever thing she liked. And she's been gone 12 years, and they still do this every day. And I went there when I stayed with them. We went to the graveyard with my son-in-law, my son-in-law is an atheist, and he thought we were absolutely nuts. Going to the graveyard and saying, "Hi, Jess, how you doing?" We're talking to Jess. Then we leave and say, "See you, bye, Jess." And he's just looking like, "Really? You do this? You talk to the gravestone?" And yes, and that's what they do. They probably will never leave their house or Chicago because their daughter's there. That's their only child. And that's okay. That's the way they do it. Christmas stopped 12 years ago. Their house is still decorated for Christmas. And people may think that's crazy. It doesn't feel crazy when I'm there. It's all about them and Jess. And it works well for them. And so that is their journey. That's how they do it. But we went to visit them. They had to clean Jess's room out so my grandchildren could stay in it. That was very difficult for them. But he told me later, he goes, "Thank you for coming down." He goes, "I don't know if we ever could have cleaned her room out for another." And now it's okay. Now it's okay. So it was one step at a time, those baby steps. So be open and be aware. Look for the signs. Anyway, we were walking on the sidewalk up in Minnesota here, and I started finding a rock. I said, "I love you," in front of a window in a closed shop. And then my buddy said, "Hey, how come I want to find a rock?" And then we went to another store. By the store on the ground was "Believe." And it ended up getting these 6, 7 rocks, all with different things on it. And it says, "Love, believe you matter. You are worth this fight. It's all okay. Just love and be brave." And that was a message for them. They took that. We found these stones independently over like 6 blocks. I finally had to ask somebody in town that I hope I wasn't picking up like a Hansel and Gretel trail. It was meant for somebody else, but I asked them, they said they'd been there all day. No one really knew what they were from or where they came from. So it was for our friends, I believe. And so they were aware, and we've talked about this forever. It helped them so much. So 3 categories of whispers allowed: prior to death, during the dying process, and after the death has occurred. And so there's many different ways. Like, I want to show, if I can show this, this is a sign from Luke. And I'm not going to have all these signs on here, but in my book, I had gotten a sign from my son. I asked for corn stalk. I said, I want a sign from you, Kelly. I want something growing in the yard. And a corn stalk grew in our yard, developed an ear of corn on it. When I took the ear of corn off, it had rotted and it stained the back of the husk with the letters DAD in mold on the husk. That changed my life and why I wrote my book, because of that sign. And so my cousin's son died of suicide, Luke, and I could not go to the funeral. And he had a woods behind his house called Luke's Woods. And I went there 2 months afterwards, and I went walking through the woods with my cousin and said, these are Luke's. I said, what, did Luke give any signs? She goes, yes, I hope we see a monarch today in his woods. It's like 5 acres behind their house. He said, no, and we didn't see one. And she said, well, usually I see a monarch, and that's his sign. So I said, well, I have a chrysalis at home that is hanging on a plant inside that my wife had found. And I said, we've been waiting for it to pop out. I've never seen one come out of the chrysalis. And we were 2 hours away from Luke's woods. And so we went through the woods. We talked about Luke. Sometimes when you go for a walk and talk, and instead of you grieve around the edges. We're not talking about the grief, but we're talking about Luke's life. And so it's kind of nice just to grieve around the edges, talk about it, the good times, the celebration, and the sadness. And 2 months down the road is different than that week of the funeral. So I come home 2 hours later, I couldn't wait to get home, and I opened the basement door, and there's a wet butterfly on the ground. It had come out of the chrysalis, and I missed it. So I picked up the butterfly, and I real gingerly and put it on the deck. The sun was shining, so I put it out for dry its wings. And I said, God, I was hoping to see a monarch up at Luke's woods. And when Luke was little, I used to say, Luke, use the force. Just kidding him as a kid all the time. Then he grew up, and I'd say that, and he said, Star Wars is over. Little did he know. I said, yeah. So, but I saw that butterfly, and I knew a butterfly was his sign. I said, Luke, use the force. And you crawl up on my tennis shoe and crawl all the way up my pants and land on my shoulder. And he did. So I'm going to show this. Hope this works. It's little Alan Peter singing.
Since you've been gone, the only thing to console me is I'm sure our love lives on. It's deeper than flesh and bone, stronger than time. It keeps me close to you. When I open up my mind, so I chase butterflies, I reach for falling stars, I look for any sign from where you are. I call your name out to the wind, so I can hear your voice again. Death can't keep us apart. I know you by heart. You're my heart. People think I'm crazy, 'cause I talk to you.
So I don't know if you saw that butterfly, but it crawled right up. And then another butterfly came and landed on my shoulder next to that butterfly. And someone said, oh, that's got to be Kelly. I said, no, Kelly doesn't really send butterflies. He sends lots of hearts, but not really butterflies. And I said, I know it was Raymond, because I don't know if anybody knows Raymond or the Plotkins. And it was probably about 5 or at least 5 years ago that I did a workshop in Texas. And I was talking about signs. And we said, ask for a sign. And people, I said, well, you know, be realistic when you ask for a sign. Don't ask for a penguin in Texas. Well, Ronnie Plotkin, I didn't know at the time, just stood up and says, I beg your pardon, Mr. Carmody. I go, what? He said, my son Raymond loved penguins. And so we adopted one at the Houston Zoo. So don't tell me there's no penguins in Texas. And so we all laughed about it. And what that prompted that day, now 8 years later, how many years later since we did that, they had to buy a hutch in their house. They had it filled with penguin stuff from all over the country. When people don't know what to say, don't know what to say in an anniversary date, all you got to do is send a penguin. That's 7% of the words. Send something, it means something. It's such an easier opportunity than to say, I'm sorry, it's been, you know, blah, blah, blah. Just send a penguin. My granddaughter did a portrait of a penguin for her. I did a portrait of a penguin, of Raymond in a penguin outfit. I mean, it was a crazy, I mean, the Plotkins relay this. I mean, this is a unbelievable sign, because they asked me to do a portrait of Raymond. He loved penguins, obviously. And so I did a portrait of him wearing a penguin suit with his face and other stuff that he loved around his portrait. And I brought it to one of the conferences, because I was going to give a portrait away at the bookstore. And I said, hey, it's in Texas. Can you bring Raymond's picture, put it in the bookstore so people can look at it and say, oh, this is a, you know, you can bid on it to get a free portrait or whatever. But we were doing a late night sharing session on Whispers in the front of the ballroom. And, you know, it was at like 10 o'clock at night, it was getting late. And so people were, you know, sometimes they used to go to like 4 hours, but, you know, we had a big group of people, we're talking and sharing and talking and sharing. And this one woman was in the background, really quiet. And she didn't say anything. People started dispersing, and she comes up and she said, I want to talk to you. But she goes, I'm a psychic. And she goes, but I'm here for me, my own loss. And you don't tell people you're a psychic or a massage person to people in bereaved, you know, because you're going to get inundated. So, I mean, she just wanted to be in the first cell. And she said, but I can't help it. I feel and see things. And she said, I just got here at the conference and I heard about this session. And I missed the actual workshop, but I wanted to come to the sharing session. So she came straight to the sharing session. First thing there. Never been anywhere else at the conference, the bookstore or anything. And she said, I know this sounds crazy, but when you were at the end, when you were talking and about sharing, there was this crazy, but it looked like a boy dressed up in a penguin suit dancing behind you like Charlie Chaplin. And I said, I said, oh my God. I said, you've got to get a hold of the Plotkins. So I finally got hold, like they met up, they went to the bookstore the next day, and she said, that's him. These things happen.
I just sent Elaine and Ronnie a dish, Waterford, with 3 penguins on it for their cabinet.
That was yours?
Yeah, I just
was that the Christmas penguins? Or
yes,
it looked like a plate with them. I love that. Oh, they got one more. Oh, and if you see a picture of their hutch, I usually put a picture of the hutch in the workshop too, because it's just filled. And it just, you get goosebumps looking at it, because you know each one of those is a compassionate hello, and not a sad hello, but a celebration hello. And that is a huge difference than the sad reminders. I mean, we get both, but down the road we get all these good ones. You know, all the joy ones that, boy, do those produce oxytocin. I tell you, when you get one of those. So here we go. We'll talk about, I had a quiz, but you know, it's available on my website. If anybody wants to go to my website, and it's called a free test, and you can go to the test and you'll see. But I'll talk about it because it's called Grief in 100 Acre Wood. And soul makes the decision. So who are we as a person makes the decision. That's why I call soul a decision maker. When you get to the fork in the road, you know, I know that was, yeah, no, I'm not going to say that one. What the fork do you do, right? You know, that's what someone said to me. But what do you do at the fork? most people set up camp at the fork because they don't know which way to go. The high road, the low road, the road less traveled, or the one most traveled. It's still a choice point. The soul is one that makes that choice. So who are as a griever makes a difference. Sorrow makes us all children again. It destroys all differences of intellect. The wisest know nothing. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that. So it is like starting all over again, as I talked about earlier. So who are as a person? I don't know if anybody here has taken a personality test in their life. If you have, most people have taken the, I see some hands. The Myers-Briggs is usually the biggest one. And you go to a Myers-Briggs workshop and you go home, wow, that's cool. I am an ENFP, my wife's an INFJ. And then 2 weeks later we go, what the hell is an INFJ? You don't remember 16 personality profiles, much less all the letters in between, what they mean. So we end up, it was fun that day, but you end up losing it because you can't remember. So I came up with another test that goes on the 5 personalities of the Tao, or in psychology, they call it the Big Five. That we're all basically one of the 5 personalities, or actually a composite of them. But we have one strong suit that we are born with, that we draw to because of nature and nurture. We find out what is our strong suit. So the 5 of the Tao is fire, wood, earth, water, and metal. Fire is a loving, passionate person. These, by example, the emotion is happiness. Wood is the action maker, the thinker, the planner, the doer. Their emotion is anger. Earth person, sympathetic, thoughtful, feeler, earth hugger. You know, emotion is empathy. Then there's water, the creative, sensitive, effective, wise person. Your emotion is fear. Then there's metal, the chronic griever. Insecure, hopeless, emotion is grief. Now you can look at all these and say, yes, I think I'm fire, I'm a little wood, I'm water, you can be these, but you might not remember these if you haven't studied Eastern philosophy much. But everybody, I think, has read Winnie the Pooh. So I put it into easier term is who are you in 100 Acre Wood, and that's what my test revolves around. So you have Pooh. Now, I'm going to place these characters as people in your compassionate friends group when we did meet in a place. So you have Pooh, and people see Pooh at the compassionate friends group, and they say, "Look at Pooh. He goes to the store, gets his Starbucks every morning at 8 o'clock, goes to work, stops at the dairy on the way home. He does everything. He just smiles, got a kind of half smile on his face. He needs to see somebody. He's not grieving. He's just so normal. He can't be that normal." Well, no, he's a Pooh. Winnie loves routine. They thrive on routine. They thrive on going to Starbucks at 8:45, and they have the same stool. The people know them, that no one sits in that stool. These are the ones, they like that routine. So when they're out of sync and they're out of routine, they are in trauma. If they can maintain a routine, they'll do better. So people look at them that they're just so normal that they're not grieving. You know, they need to see somebody. No, they're drawing to their strong suit, which is a Winnie. Now, or you can be a rabbit. Then you have the rabbit in the compassionate friends group, and they're the wood. Their emotion is anger, because they get mad if they can't get it all done. And they're foundation builders. They're wood. They get stuff done. They are rabbits, and people look at the rabbit in the group. They go, "Oh my God, they're running from their grief. They're doing everything. They're planning. They're doing this. They're doing that. There isn't anything they don't do. They're just always busy, busy, busy. They're running from their grief. They need to see somebody." No, they're a rabbit. They're running with their grief. Rabbits love to run. That's what they do best. So when a rabbit is running, they get stuff done. We need rabbits at TCF. Boy, howdy, we need rabbits. They get stuff done. So they turn their grief into energy, and they do all sorts of things and planning all sorts of things, and they get it all done. And that's what a rabbit does. So then we have Piglet. Everybody knows piglets. They usually wear a lot of butterflies on their clothes, butterfly curtains, butterflies on their license plate, butterflies on their return address labels. You know, these are piglets. They hug and love everybody. You know, someone look at a compassionate friends group, you have Piglet at the door to welcome people in. You don't put Eeyore at the door at a compassionate friends group to welcome people in. No one would walk in the door. But you put a piglet in, they come up and blah, they want to hug. They wear their emotions on their sleeve. They talk about their child. They cry and they laugh at the same time. They ask you how your child's doing. What was his birthday? What was his favorite food? I mean, they continually want to know information. And so that is what piglets do. So you can kind of see that it's a balance between introversion and extroversion. Rabbit is an extrovert, and so is piglet. And then and Winnie is an omnivert. He rides the fence between both. But then we have Owl, who's an introvert. Owl, the thinker, the creator. Water is his symbol. And fear, he's afraid to make a mistake. You know, that Owl's in a compassionate friend group. They look at the guy who's been in the back for 3 months, has not said a word. And they look, oh my God, that man, he's been here 3 months, has not said a word. He needs to go see somebody. No, he's an owl. Owls, still waters run deep. He's thinking, he's processing, he hears every word in that room. But he's going to make a mistake and make a judgment or say something that'll hurt someone's feelings. But if you ask him, Owl will tell you. And so we need owls. We need them in the Compassionate Friends group. They're the ones in the back scenes that they're the treasurers. They do the running. They do this. They do anything to keep out of being in front of the podium. And so you need those owls in the background. And owls are very dependable. They're a good counsel. Then we have Eeyore, the procrastinator, the crier. Their energy is grief. Their symbol is cold, harsh metal. Everything is rotten. Everything is bad. So, and that's normally we go into Eeyore-ness in our grief. You know, everything is bad. You know, but Eeyore is just, you know, in an Eeyore group, you see Eeyore at the Compassionate Friends group, you know, and he's sitting oh, we need to set up tables. Eeyore, will you go get some tables? Yeah, I'll do it, but I'll probably hurt my back. You know, so he'll do it, but he's gonna bitch about it. He's gonna grumble about it. He loves to complain. So he loves to go to group. He loves to go to Compassionate Friends group because he has a whole body of people that he can complain to and that can't get away. So Eeyores love to go to Compassionate Friends, and they'll do anything. They'll do anything for you. Just ask them to do it. They'll give you the shirt off their back. They will complain later that it was their best shirt, but they will give you the shirt off their back. So we all are one of these characters, you know, is our strong suit. And that's when the test I made, it kind of defines who you are. And like, I'm a Winnie with a piglet rising. So you're a little bit of each. You can depend, you know, you use your ear when you need to, you need your rabbit when you need to, but you go to your strong suit when you're in your worst spot. That is what gets you out. So when Winnie has his routine, let him have his routine. When you have the butterflies over everything, God help them, yes. Let them do their butterfly thing. It helps everybody, you know, so we all work together. And we all have a little Eeyore in us. We all have a little rabbit in us. We all have a little poo in us. That's a joke. But so we go on to what else is in the 100-acre wood? We have Who's Tigger? Those people out there that come up, oh, it's been 3 months. How is it now? You're over it yet? They pounce on you. They come up and say the stupidest thing. God needed another flower for his garden. What are you doing next week? You know, it's only been 2 weeks. You know, you're going to the party, you're going to the picnic, you know, they're clueless, but they only jump on people they love. So when someone pounces on you, look at the intent. Look at their heart intent. What are they trying to say? Are they trying to hurt you by saying something really stupid like that? No. It's her worse that they walk the other way and don't say anything. So I allow people, we bitch a lot about the stupid things people say, but at least they say take the risk to say something. So we correct them if they're really outlandish, or we encourage other things to say, but know that their heart's in the right place. So Tigger will jump on you and knock you down, but it's because he loves you. So know that there are Tiggers out there waiting around the corner that may jump on us unexpectedly. Then we see who Kanga and Roo. And we look and we see Kanga, we see a mom with a baby. And we go, there for the grace of I, go I. Where's my child? How come this woman is happy and still has to have her child? We don't know her story, do we? Where's Mr. Roo? We don't know her backstory. So let's not judge her by her smile, but she may have her own issues too. So she's not one of the 3 or 5 acre personalities, but she represents people out there that we, you know, we envy, you know, and you know, 'cause it hurts us to see someone else have what we don't have. And that's normal feelings too, but we don't take it out on them. We don't take it out on Kangaroo. We just bless them for having what they have that we have. So who's Christopher Robin? Christopher Robin is that Christ figure. I call it that he made 100 Acre Wood. Christopher Robin, as a little boy, made all these make-believe animals from his stuffed animals in his room. He used to, the true story, he used to go to the zoo where he saw this bear at the zoo named Winnie. And so he loved it. So his dad let him, I mean, my God, A. Milne would be put in jail for child endangerment, but he let his kid go in the cage with the bear. This is documented. And so he was a very friendly bear. So he created his, you know, and he had another story what his dad wrote called Pooh, which is a best friend. So he used Pooh as best friend. He called it Winnie the Bear, Winnie the Pooh, and made the story up. But I was in Canada speaking at TCF Canada this summer, and they gave me the book, the real book. And you know why Winnie the Pooh is called Winnie the Pooh? I was in Winnipeg. There was a soldier in Winnipeg during World War II that found a bear at the railroad station someone was selling for $5. He took it as a mascot for his soldiers all across Canada, and they called him Winnie. And when they went to go fight World War II in England, they went to London and they dropped it off at the London Zoo, and it became Winnie the Pooh on display there. And that's the true story behind Winnie the Pooh. And it all started from in Winnipeg. Wonderful TCF in Winnipeg. So they knew this whole story about Winnie. So they really enjoyed when I did this segment. But who is Christopher Robin? He comes into the woods once in a while, gives some advice, and then leaves us to our own devices, our own choices, and our own devices to help in our woods. He's not there all the time, but is there always to help. So Christopher Robin said to Pooh, if there's ever tomorrow when we're not together, there's something you must always remember. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. But the most important thing, if we're ever apart, I will always be with you. So this whole Winnie thing has been such a blessing for me and for other people that have taken the task, or how we can talk to each other at a group. At the end of the group, people are laughing, "Hey Winnie," or "Hey Piglet." They're all giving. I did this at the my wife's. She's been an ER nurse or intensive care nurse for 25 years. I went to her hospital 2 years ago and did this workshop about Winnie the Pooh. And the 2 years before, now she's retired, she said in the last 2 years, they'd say, we got an ER we got ER coming in and on the circle, send in Nurse Piglet. And the doctors, they said, all the surgeons are owls, notorious owls. You know, and it's how they use that vernacular now in the health system to identify. People don't know what they're talking about when they say ER or whatever, but they can communicate with their own type of language. So it's so helpful and with my granddaughter going up, my granddaughter went with, now that she was born on Kelly's Angel Day. And so she went to Canada. I went to speak. I did a full workshop all day, and she wanted to see all my workshops. She's 10 years old. She sat there all day for an 8-hour day at the two sessions in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, at lunch, and then we came back and had dinner. And at the dinner, we had the traditional candle lighting, and Alan's song was playing, the candle lighting song. I was up on the podium. My granddaughter was at the table with 10 other people or whatever, a big circle table at front. And I looked and she's crying and crying. And I went down afterwards, and after the song was over, and she's visibly shooken. And everybody at the table is surrounding her. And she said she was stood up at the table when Alan sang that one song. He said, if you see me tonight, if I hear you tonight, you're looking down tonight and see this candle burning bright, it means that I am wishing you were here. And she said, right when he said here, she said, I saw Uncle Kelly. He came up to me, and I closed my eyes. I didn't see him until I closed my eyes, but I closed my eyes, I could feel him, and I hugged him. And she started crying, and everybody's congratulating her. And she said, I want 3 signs from him. And she said, I found a purple orb, and I found a butterfly, and I found a feather, but I wanted the rainbow. I said, Kelly, I want a rainbow. Hadn't rained in 6 weeks in Canada. That day before we left, she said, I still don't get my rainbow. We're just getting ready to leave. big storm comes through, the sky turns black, rains horribly, breaks up with sun and a huge rainbow in front of the hotels we're getting into our car. And she goes, yes, Uncle Kelly. So, I mean, all these little things, she's growing up with this. So she thinks that, okay, it's normal. I mean, she thinks about it all the time, you know, and not all the time, but healthily. It's part of my life. So there's hope in all these things, the choices that we make. And so it's boiling it down to 5 adaptation styles in our grief. We are the normalizer, which is Winnie. We normalize the situation. We are the seeker. We're the owl looking for information and research. We are the memorialist. We are the piglet who sets up memories and does everything in honor to keep their legacy alive. The activist who gets stuff done to make sure it happens. And the wanderer who just wanders around to help everybody and so he can get someone to complain to. But these are the people that we are in our grief, and we can identify them. So while Eeyore frets and Piglet hesitates, and Rabbit calculates, and Owl pontificates, Pooh just is. So that's pretty much all I have. And so unless you want to hear one more song at the end here, but did you hear Alan's song all right?
Yes.
Okay,
It's
well,
great.
I will see if this works, because this puts the whole Winnie the Pooh together. And I like to end on a light note, because there is a swear word in here. If it works. It may not work. You may be in luck. Nope, I don't think so. Nope, I don't think it's going to work. It's a song about all the characters in 100 Acre Wood. It's rather funny, by Mary Lambert. But anyway, let's open it up to questions. I've gone through a lot of material, and I know there might be a lot of questions or things you want to share with me or anything.
Okay, let me unmute them. No, wait.
Hello, Joe.
Mitch,
Yes.
don't you wear your do-rags anymore?
No, I don't. I wore my do-rags until the conference 3 years ago. And because when my son was sick, his hair fell out, 9 years old. And so he had to wear, and they put those marks on his head with radiation. So we wore a bandana. We had a pair of red bandanas and red Converse Chuck Taylor shoes.
Right.
And so that was kind of our thing. And then as the years went by, after he died, I started getting more Chuck Taylors and more bandanas. Then I got a job as a janitor at a middle school, and they loved my Chuck Taylors. So I had like 40 pairs and 40 scarves, and it became kind of my mourning scarf. It was my scarf mourning my son. And then now all these years later, I was after my granddaughter was born. I said, you know, I'm not mourning him. It's been 30 years. I grieve him still, but I'm not outwardly mourning his loss. I'm celebrating his life. So that was my mourning scarf. So I doffed my mourning scarf, and I don't wear it anymore for that reason.
Well, thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
Comments, questions? Go ahead, Melissa.
Yes, Mitch, thank you very much. That was so much information. I was like jotting lots of notes. But I do have a question. When you were talking about the breathing, the 4, 7, 8, you mentioned how you recited words with that. Breathe in. Could you repeat those?
Yes, it's a slow meditation. And just you breathe in. I say breathe in relaxation, right? Breathing in relaxation in your head, because it's hard to breathe when you're talking, but you breathe in relaxation and breathe real slow, 4 seconds, breathe in relaxation, hold it. I'm holding all the love. Hold that for 7 seconds. Then you slowly let it out. I let out all the tension, all the frustration, all the anxiety, whatever you choose to fill in the negative out breath, a positive in breath, hold the positive, and then exhale the negative.
Thank you.
Choose your own words, your own meditation, and it really does. If you're having trouble thinking, you can't remember something, it helps to really because in grief, our frontal lobe locks up, and the more we try to think, you ever try to think something really hard, the more embarrassed you get, you cannot remember anything. It's natural, but the breathing does help.
Irene?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Dr. Andrew Weil has a breathing CD, and it's called Breathing the Self-Mastery, Self-Healing. And it has the 4, 7, 8 that he was talking about, breathing and other breathing exercises. It has 2 CD discs in it. And I do it every night before I go to bed.
Oh, wonderful. Can you tell us the difference? How that worked before and after? What did you notice?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, as you mentioned, it helps to keep you like calmer, and it helps me throughout the day.
And I think you hit on a good thing too. That I think doing it at night, because that's when we start to really start thinking about the sad things and stuff. That it sets up the brain a little bit more oxygen before you go to sleep, and just helps ease that tension. You not maybe go to the darker thoughts sometimes. And
yeah,
I'm glad it's working for you.
Well, the first CD tells you everything about the breathing exercises, how it helps you. And then the second CD is all the exercises. And I do the whole exercise. It's an hour long.
What was the name again?
That name again?
It's the breathing CD, the master key to self-healing.
Mastery of self-healing. Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Andrew Weil.
Great information.
Anyone have questions? Go ahead.
Mitch, you had mentioned your website. What is the name of your website?
www.heartlightstudios, plural, heartlightstudios.com or .net. And to give you that information too, I also have Mitch Carmody YouTube, and I have a YouTube. I've got hundreds, or some of them are really different, but I mean at least 50 grieving videos on there that you can watch anytime on different aspects of grief. Studio, like kind of what we're doing here. There's also some ones that I've done out in the yard, which are more lighter. We're using laughter, because laughter is so important in part of the grieving process. So there's a lot of things you can watch at night. And also I do a blog, Mitch Carmody blog, Mr. Heartlight blog, which I put things out every so often that relate to the grief journey. And a lot of that, and the test is on the website. It's on my website too. And
Thank you.
Good, Sue.
Mitch, the Faces of Grief, were those drawings that you had done or someone else?
no, they're all drawings that I did.
Oh, they were, oh my.
Oh, thank you. I
Oh,
started
Amazing.
there was a magazine called Living with Loss, and out of Colorado. Centering Corporation, I think, still handles it. But I wanted to do an article and do a picture of grief, and I did one. I think it was shock. And then I did another one, and another one. I finally did 19, and I didn't know what I was going to do with them. And my daughter came down, and she looked at all of them. I said, what are these? I said, I call them the Faces of Grief. And she said, well, I don't see one where you are today, Dad. And I said, well, look it up. And I said, she Googled online, and she found a woman with a bandana, and it looked very peaceful. And she said, I see you looking peaceful now, Dad. And so they're all, and I made 20, and I made cards out of them and workshop out of them. And it's very helpful to look in them. You can see yourself in the mirror and kind of see some of those. And those are all on my website too. And there's videos on YouTube that shows all those as well.
Audrey?
Mitch, your artwork is absolutely beautiful, and thank you for showing that to us. Did you start drawing after your loss, or did you always have that passion?
Yes, yes and yes. It's a good. I went to art school, but I never used it because I needed to get a real job for my family, and so I never did go pursue anything after art school. But I still always like to draw and do paintings. And then after Kelly died, I couldn't do anything. I'm an artist, and you have to be inspired to do art, and I couldn't. I just couldn't. Until Mother Teresa died, and she was one of my mentors. I was Catholic and grew up, and she was the most selfless person I've ever seen, you know, and so I was really devastated that she died, and so I did a portrait of her in pencil, and I put it in my first book, and it kind of got my pump. So now I only do pencil. I don't do color very rarely. And so I started doing portraits. And so I've done over, 300 some portraits of children who have died. And so I wanted to do some for my, in my studio. Like this one here, I called it, this is a brand new one. This is Women in Grief, a woman in grief. I don't know if you can see it, but it shows how she's hanging on by a thin thread. She's reaching up for help. She's being swallowed by a vortex. She's doing everything. A woman does everything in the grief. They're always helping everybody, helping them, but not even helping themselves, but helping themselves too. Where a man, I have another one on a man's grief, and it's a lot different than this one. But so I'm always trying to identify different ways people grieve. And it's so any art form that you use, if you write or you create or make flower arrangements or plant a garden, anything that uses the creative right side of your brain helps to balance out the left side of the brain and makes you feel better and makes you feel more worthwhile, makes you feel alive again. It's a win-win when you do art.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Very powerful.
Thank you.
Donna, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I just wanted to thank you, Mitch, for sharing with us today. It was really beautiful. I learned so much, and I know that you've been through so much. I took a whole lot of notes. I took some pictures of the screen, some things that I couldn't write down. And I wanted to know, Betty, do you record the session, the meeting?
I do.
Okay, because I would like to really share it. I have a few friends that have lost children, and they're not a part of our Compassionate Friends, but I really would like to share this because I know they can learn so much.
At some point, I'm going to use it for a meeting first before I share it.
Okay. All right.
What I will,
so much.
Pardon me, what I'll do after today, after we're done, is that because I make up a new PowerPoint for every presentation, I will make a PDF, save a PDF of this presentation, and I'll post it on my Facebook today, so anybody can grab it and download it.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mitch, you talk so much about at your workshops about gifts. We find, and some people in the chat that all have never found a gift, or they don't think they found a gift. Can you talk about that a little bit?
On a gift, you say?
A gift.
Like in
a butterfly or something like that.
Oh, getting a sign? Yes, that's probably the biggest $1 million question. And I get it through the years. And it's everybody has different talents. Just like in the 100-acre wood, we're all different type people. Some people have that more of that gut feeling, that intuition. So they easily get signs. Some people, like when I was talking about the stones, just training yourself to be more perceptive. I mean, I saw all those stones on the sidewalk. No one else did until I pointed them out. I see hearts in the clouds. I see hearts in the sky. I see hearts in everything because my mind has been trained to do that, just not trained, purposeful training. But the more you do it, the more aware you become. And if they don't come right away, it's maybe you don't recognize them. In an early grief, sometimes the biggest moms, I've had lots of moms ask me this question in the first year. I want a sign so bad and I don't get a sign. My sister gets a sign. My nephew gets a sign. People get signs and I'm the mom, why don't I? Because I think when it depends on the death. You know, the traumatic loss, it may take longer. A child born dies at birth. It's going to harder to have any type of indication that represents them. So it's different for every person what the sign may represent. And in early grief, it's so hard to get in. We're just continually thinking so hard of our grief and our pain that it's hard to even see signs that are right in front of us. I use an example that one woman said, I've been asking to find a quarter because I get, our friends get quarters or dimes. Anybody get dimes or nickels but they're usually the same thing. My wife gets quarters. And this one woman says, well, I've been asking for a quarter and I don't see a quarter. I've been asking for a quarter and there's a butterfly flying around her head. She goes, where's my quarter? I've been asking for a quarter and this butterfly won't go away. And this actually happened to a friend of mine. Her dad died, and I was over last week, and she said, remember the butterfly story? She goes, I didn't believe in signs, and she came back from camping, and she said, no one loved my dad like I did. 7 kids, and she said, Dad, I was the favorite, of course, and she said, and I love my dad the most, and I'm not getting a sign. Why don't I get a sign? She asked me that, and then she told me about a camping trip she went with my wife. They went camping for 3 days. It came back and said, there was this butterfly that would not leave me alone. It went in the tent. It went camping with me. It went walking with me. For 3 days, that monarch butterfly, stayed around the campsite, came in the tent with her. And then she woke up the next morning. She said, I rolled over and killed it. And I said, you've been asking for a sign from your dad and you have a butterfly stay with you for 3 days? She said, oh my gosh, I never even put that two together. So it's putting the 2 and 2 together that she finally realized. And now her kids, now it's been years, but they ever see a butterfly, they all say, hi, Grandpa. It opened up that door. And so many times, it slowly will come. And the important aspect, I'm glad to ask that question, is to not be afraid to tell people that you're crazy. Okay, yeah, I believe in signs, I'm crazy. Go ahead, call me crazy. I don't really care. Nothing can hurt me more than I've been hurt already. You calling me crazy, it's water off a duck. So I don't care. This works and helps me. But when you tell people the story and tell them you're looking for signs, then pretty soon they may have a dream that they would not have come to you and said, I had a dream about your dead child, because they're going to upset us. They don't know that we would love to hear it, but they're afraid to upset us. But if they know we're looking for signs and actively talk about it without embarrassment, they're going to come to you and say, oh my God, I had a dream last night. Your son or your child was in it. So you give them permission to talk about it. So talk about it as much as you can.
Sheridan?
Put the collar up there and hang the leash up on the key.
Sheridan?
Hang the keys.
Muted.
Unmute yourself.
There we go. I was just going to ask the same question. I actually feel kind of bad when I hear people talking about all the signs that they see, because I don't. And then people have suggested, well, pick something and ask for it. And I've done that. I still don't get it. So anyway, Mitch already kind of answered that question.
But have you heard
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Have one of you heard any songs on the radio or anything like that just makes you pause?
No.
Sometimes a song will come on the radio and in the mall or elevator or in a car, at a park, all of a sudden that song's of your loved one, and you go, oh my gosh, it makes me feel and think of them. It can be that simple.
My goodness. I think it's
muted. Who's talking?
I got to get on the
Hi,
table
Mary.
over there.
Yeah? Are you waving, Mary?
Yes.
Oh.
Mitch, thank you so much. It was really helpful, and I really appreciated your sense of humor. And I took notes too. I don't have much paperwork, so I used this. But I did not get, and I would like to have a repeat of the kind of grievers. I got raw and I got seasoned, but 2, 3, and 5 I did not get.
You got the raw griever.
Right.
You got the proactive griever.
Oh, proactive? No, I didn't get that.
And the reluctant griever.
Reluctant. There was one other thing I just questioned. I don't know if you would want to comment on it, but I heard you say in your grieving process you turned to alcohol. And that was something that, you know, you did, and I know people who did too. When you fell down in front of your son's picture and then you started to really cry, was that like a turning point for you or a down moment when you realized you had to make a change?
Mary, it was pivotal. I had not hurt that bad in 3 years, and so I knew it was important. And it became an epiphany to me, yes. And I said, no, I want to live. You know, I'm gonna breathe better. I want to do better at work. I was a safety manager at a refinery. I didn't like going in with a hangover. You know, I just came home and slept and drank. I mean, it was a workless life. I wasn't doing art. I wasn't doing anything. Yeah. So after that point, when I said, I'm going to start a new relationship, I actually said that word, Kelly, I'm starting a new relationship with you. And that brought my life back. And I didn't drink. I drank socially, but I didn't drink to numb the pain.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing about the signs, I just want to say for me, if I get one, I write it down because I don't want to forget it.
Oh, definitely. Writing everything down. Yes. I mean, I write things down all the time. I have a whole drawer full of notes. I just keep notes and write them in, and to make sure that I do not forget, because when we're grieving, we do forget too. And the signs, I haven't asked for signs anymore. My granddaughter does. I just get them. And I notice them, and I know that there's certain things that, you know, that I know it's Kelly, you know, and even I have his number. So certain people will have numbers that come up all the time. And I embarrassingly have a number that Kelly was born, and I didn't know why. I had to look back and why I wake up at 4:20 every morning, or why I get a room that's 4:20, or I get change at 4:20, or it's in my granddaughter, when we moved to Canada, we arrived at the hotel at 4:20. We got a room that was 4:20. She said, Papa, that stuff is really real about your, you know, and it's embarrassing because it means pot smoking out in the college circuit, but 4:20 is a number that comes up a lot for me. So I just pause and smile whenever I see that number, and that's just wonderful. So it's always hearing Kelly's name when I think of that. So there's so many little things. You see a rainbow, you see a butterfly, you see a penny, you're going to think of your child. That's the good thing. You don't have to explain or validate the magic of it all. The magic is that your heart feels good when you have it, and that is vital. And there can be so many ways. So if any of you haven't, put it in your incentives at night when you do your breathing, your 4-7-8, and say, you know, talk about, please, I want a sign tonight. Make it easy, and look, and just take your blinders off and look around. I mean, have you ever tried to look for a 4-leaf clover in the grass? It's hard until you find one, and then you find another one, and then you find another one. But it takes practice first to find that 4-leaf clover. But once your brain picks up how to do it, it's an amazing thing, our brain. And I think most people that I've talked to through the years, I talk to people that say, finally I got my sign 10 years later. They say, I finally got my sign. And so it does take time. And most of the time they think, you know, I think I just missed the signs. I just didn't see them. So we should do another segment sometime on just signs. And I have a lot of different slides, and people can share their personal stories on signs. Or does anybody have a sign they want to share right now?
Anyone? Go ahead, Linda.
Muted.
Wait a minute, Linda. Linda, you're muted. Go ahead.
I'm the kind of person that I never, ever, ever remember my dreams. And very recently, my husband was telling me about a dream he had of our daughter. And I was saying to him, you're so lucky. I wish I could dream about her. And I said, Maeve, I really want to dream about you. And the next night I had an extremely vivid dream about her. And it was so wonderful. I woke up and I just got up out of bed and I just started crying. It was tears of joy. I was so happy and it was so real. It was just amazing. It was wonderful.
And there's nothing on the planet that can give you that feeling, is there?
Yeah.
Nothing. Absolutely. There's no club, there's no group, there's no meeting, there's no well-meaning person. But when you get that, your whole body feels it. And
yes. I mean, right now, just talking about it, the feel of joy in my heart. Because she was so happy and we were embracing, and it was wonderful. And it was just, I mean, and when I say that I never remember my dreams, I never do. So it was fantastic.
What a gift. What a gift you got.
Yes.
What a gift. And they say when you have a dream, and like when we have dreams, I didn't get into the dream part of it, but when we have dreams, most normal dreams are a modge podge, a mix up of everything happened during the day or whatever, and it really doesn't make much sense. A visitation dream from our loved one is usually full, it's high def, full color, full smell, full feeling, and it's like watching a video that you'll never, ever, ever forget. The ones that I've had, I could see my dad when I had a dream about my father, you know, and saying congratulations on my book. And I said, no, this can't be real. And he hugged me, and he's wearing his police uniform that he died in. And it was just like, I thought I'd given up on getting signs from him. I never had one till I published my book. And he said, I'm so proud of you, son. And, I could see him right now in my head. And so those things are lasting, and those are really valid dreams. And everybody wants that. Everybody wants to have that billboard. They don't always happen. And you may not ever get a dream that powerful again, but you'll live with it the rest of your life.
Someone else had a question. Was that you, Irene? Somebody raised their
I have a question. I was going to comment on the signs. I have had dreams of Stephen, and also butterflies have always been special to me because of the Compassionate Friends. So whenever I see butterflies, I think of Stephen. And one time we were out at Smoky Mountains, and they had a whole group of butterflies, and I was just like, that's Stephen here with us, you know. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, yes, yes. And it becomes a conduit for other people in our fold, and that there are acquaintances that get like the Plotkin. I use the whole Plotkin syndrome. You know, once you open the door, you open the door for so many other people. And I want to dovetail on the dream. I want to say one thing, that one person had contacted me about a dream several years ago. And that it was so incredible because she said her son had died and had come to her and was hugging her. And her sister, who was very close, an aunt who was very close to her son, called her at the middle of the night and said, oh, you won't believe it. I had a dream of Max. I had a dream of Max. And the mom said, I just had a dream of Max. What time was it? They had the same dream at the same time across the country.
Wow.
How does that, and there's no explanation for that happen other than it is a real thing.
Wow.
So it can happen, and just have faith and try and be very open, and I think they will come, you know, and breathe and relax. Because when we're uptight, they're really hard to get in when we're uptight.
Jill?
Muted.
Nice lamp.
Wait a minute. Go ahead,
okay.
Jill. You just got on.
Mitch, is it possible to show the very last screen that you had shown, the little poo poem?
Oh, yes, I think
the very last one.
I can find that. Oh, there. Oh, now it's on this screen. Okay, well, I'll find it here. Screen is blanked out. I can't see you guys. Can you still see me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. Might need to print screen, maybe.
Oh, find it. Oh, here it is. This one?
Yes, I just want to print screen it. Thank you. Thank you. And I've had lots of signs from Sarah. My biggest sign was Christmas morning when I came down and our gas fireplace was on and roaring. And, you know, I've lived in my house for 18 years and nothing's ever come on by itself.
It just came out by itself in the morning? You didn't? Wow.
It was on when I came down real early. I came down to make breakfast and the fireplace was on. And the doors were still shut and it was on and blaring.
Did he like the fireplace?
It was her only child that passed away, so there was no one else that could have.
No one else. Yeah, but I mean, they usually, if they love the fire, I mean, and when you look at a sign when you get one, there's something usually associated with it, like you love the fireplace, or when you find a coin, there's a date on it, or, you know, there's usually a myriad of meanings around when there's a sign if you look around it. And things that come on, I mean, there's been music boxes that have come on that have not been wound on the anniversary date, or a toy will start playing with batteries that are old, and or a doorbell will ring, or one woman said the dishwasher kept counting on and off and on and off. And she said, I yelled at you all your life to put dishes in the dishwasher and turn it on, and now you're gone and you're turning on the dishwasher. You know, just yelling at her son. How wonderful that you can still yell at your son, because they like to piss their moms off. You know, I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but I mean, they use things that you know is them. They sign it with their personality, with a signature that only you would know, that they would say that or use that. And then you know, oh my God, of course that's him. He's picking on me again.
Well, I think it was just it was her first Christmas not here.
And that was for the fireplace for you. Yeah, I'm talking generally, but
Yeah.
The fireplace was a place where you gathered. And how old was she?
She was 25.
25. So what do you do for Christmas?
Well, we've made up one new tradition of, we have a tree lighting that we put 2 little trees on her grave that have lights on them, and so we turn them on. We have an official tree lighting night that we turn the lights on.
Okay. So it's a new ritual that you have for Christmas in honor of your daughter. And that's a good thing to do. It's a wonderful thing to do. To get through the holidays. I know my son died December 1st, and I didn't want to go through the holidays, so we said, okay, we'll cut the tree down on December 1st then. It gave us a way for our daughter to actually go through she needed Christmas, you know, and she was 6 years old, and we were devastated parents and did not want to put a tree up. But we said, okay, let's just, instead of trying to ignore it or get around it, let's just make it a part of it. And that worked for us. So I'm glad you did doing that.
Karen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a story real quick, and I think several people here have actually seen this picture that I'm talking about. My son was also, and I'm getting a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
But he built an above ground pool in my backyard, and about 2 years after he passed, I guess it was the 2nd anniversary of my last time seeing him, there was a rainbow in my backyard above my pool. And it's happened again last year. So I'm waiting this year for my rainbow to appear. But I've had lots of signs, but that's really the most meaningful.
Wow. That's excellent.
And I can see that from this perspective when I hear you talking about your signs, and my psychiatrist friend talking about countenance, the facial. I mean, I could see the smiles and the glints and everything going on in your faces when you're talking about it. So that feeling is there. I'm glad. And the other stories, I'd love to hear more stories. But.
I got one.
Go ahead, Mary.
This is a little different kind of sign, Mitch, but I was sitting in the back of our chapel. We have a chapel and then we have a church. And it was like after 10 o'clock, and sometimes I'll just stop there because it's quiet. And so I went in, and I usually go up to the front, and I sat down, and I guess it was I was talking to the God of my understanding and talking to my husband who had passed and my son first. And about 15 minutes into that, I heard the door of the chapel open. And I turned around and I looked, and I saw this younger guy. His hair was kind of disheveled, and he had on a black leather jacket, and he had a chain, and he was breathing heavily. And I got scared. So I just whispered to my son, Jimmy, and to my son, Jim, that they would appear beside me because they were both 6 feet tall. And this guy could come another time to the chapel and he could have the whole place to himself. Well, within a matter of minutes, he did turn around and leave. And I just went, thank you guys. Thank you for showing up. When I think I remembered that story from Chicken Soup for the Soul, when maybe they were sharing about guardian angels. And I sometimes think of, the 2 most important men in my life as angels. And if I wanted anybody there beside me that night, because nobody else was around, it was probably, 10 or 11 o'clock.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I felt safe going, but I haven't gone late again. I try to go a little earlier in the day, but I was just grateful to God and to both of them.
Yes, and to have that dialogue with them, and can you help me out here? And they did. That's wonderful. I love that. And I know a woman once called me and said that there was an audio thing. She was driving a car and she heard her son say, "Stop!" Like, just stop. She just heard to stop, so she just slammed on the brakes, and a car went through a stop sign right in front of her. 2 seconds later, she would have been T-boned and been dead. Mm-hmm. But she heard her son say, "Stop." So it happens in so many ways, it's amazing.
Who had their hand up? Was that Donna? Wait a minute, you're muted. Wait a minute, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I believe I received a warning from my son. This is right before COVID-19 death toll in the US took off. And, just went out of control. And I was sitting here on my couch. I fell asleep like I always do. And my son woke me up, and I know it was him. And he said, "Mom, are you ready? Are you ready?" No, he said, "Are you ready, Mom?" And so I woke up, and I got up, and I thought maybe it was my daughter, and I went and looked, and her door was shut. She's in there, knocked out, sound asleep. And it was just so clear and so, just like him. It was just like him to warn me. And of course, that was kind of scary because it led to more questions. Am I ready for this? Am I ready to die? Am I ready to get coronavirus? Am I, you know what I mean? But I just believe that it was just a warning for him to let me know what was coming and just to brace myself and be ready and to maybe just know that he's with me and that, he's watching over us and keeping us safe. But it was just so clear and just so, woke me up and it was nobody else. I could say God was talking to me, but God wouldn't call me Mom, So it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful thing.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes.
And you can't tell everybody that, But I know
I encourage it, because I really do. Because so many people are, really do think about it no matter what persuasion they are, from what part of the country. And, I've been to places where it said, well, don't say that at a Baptist church. Oh, some of the Baptists are the most strongest people and signs I've ever met, and Catholics, no, everybody got an opinion on it. And it's just really a one-on-one thing, but I just choose to share it because people thought I was crazy anyway, so they can just lump it on top.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyone else have a sign they want to share? Go ahead, Melissa.
Read it.
Melissa? Hello.
Hi. So I think what you said is true. Like you might see something and then look for it. So I always notice 6:12 on the clock. Like for some reason, no matter morning and night, it's like I'll wake up that time or I look at the clock and that's my daughter's birthday. And I always just think, it's just from her. But I guess I'm cued into that time, so I really notice it a lot. And then that's one sign. And then the other thing is, I did have one extremely vivid dream with my daughter, and she was kind of playful. Jess was 27 when she died, and she had this long, beautiful hair, and I was standing in front of my bathroom mirror getting ready for work, and I was brushing my hair, and I look in the mirror and I see this long hair, and I'm like, that's not me. And all of a sudden she flips around, and I see her hair just swirl around her, and she's smiling, and she's like, and she didn't say it, but I heard her think it, like, I got you, Mom. Like, surprise, I got you. And the thing is, though, the first thing I asked her, which is really hard for me, is I was like, why, Jess? Why? Because Jess died at 27 from an excessive amount of her depression medicine. And I just was like, why? What happened? And I could see her talking and her mouth moving, but I couldn't hear anything coming out. So all of a sudden it dawned on me that I'm wasting this time, you know? And we just both kind of looked at each other and shrugged. And then the very next instant, I was laying in my bed, and she's getting in bed next to me. I can see her pick up the blankets next to me and put her long legs underneath the blankets and then snuggle down. And then that was the end of my dream. So I'm glad I didn't waste my entire time questioning and then just enjoyed her company with me.
I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people talk about that feeling of someone sliding into bed or sitting on the edge of the bed. You're in bed, you feel like the bed, someone's sitting on it. And I've heard that from hundreds of people. Or something just out the corner of your eye, you know, what was that? You know, and you, well, it was nothing, you know. But when you start to say, well, maybe it was something, just we slow ourselves down, you know, a little bit, you know. And when we're busy people, younger people, our brain works differently when we're young than it does when we're old, and time's a lot faster when we're older too. So there's so many things coming in when we're young, and it's hard to get in. But when we get older, they start to come in by just because we're not so walled off with so many things. And I think that's why it's good to find meditation, you know, especially anything that gets you in that meditative state is going to create the right condition, the perfect storm. And it's not everyone, and we try so hard, you know, like I compare it to like women that, like my sister-in-law and other people I've met that want to have a baby so bad. They try to have babies, they don't. And they adopt, and they get pregnant right away. You know, and it's the same way I've heard in science. People have tried for science and nothing, and then they stop, and then bam, they get the sign. You know, so I don't know, it's just like you want it so hard. And they're also on their time. They got stuff to do, I believe. You know, they're not always available. You know, and we'd like them to be 24/7, but you know, I don't think they're available that much.
Mitch, I can't thank you enough for coming on. What do you think? Should we bring them back again?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
There you go.
Yes.
Okay, well, if you want to do it again, we'll do a whole thing on signs. I have a huge slideshow on signs and a lot of evidence and pictures and stuff and I'll try to get the kinks worked out on the screen here a little bit better to be able to see some of those, because they are some incredible ones. I posted one online. I don't know if anybody saw it, with Alan Peterson and Denise Peterson. We were in we were filming for Open to Hope. Everybody heard of Open to Hope? Fantastic station, Open to Hope. All the videos and broadcasts that they do. But Alan Peterson and his wife then, Denise Peterson, we were working together and doing a video for Open to Hope. It was by Stanford University. And we've been in the studio filming all day long, and we said, oh, let's just go get some pizza and beer. You know, we're just 8 o'clock at night. And we went to a Stanford University bar, you know, they got all these wood tables and a pizza place with people have carved names all over the walls, and everything has got like names and stuff written on it. And so we're going to sit at a table, the only table open, and I'm going to sit down, and Denise says, no, I don't want to sit at a table. I like a booth. And Alan and I were going, come on, let's just eat. And she goes, no, I want to sit at a booth. I said, okay. So we looked over, there was a booth that had food on it, but no one's there. So we went over and Denise sat down. We said, okay, we're going to sit here and wait for the waitress to clear it. So we sat down in the booth. The waitress came and cleared the dishes. First, she cleared the dishes in front of me, and burned like, you know, it's covered with like a plexi or I don't know, varnish or something. But all the signatures had been there for years. And right in front of me was my name. It says Mitch. Like, are you kidding me? And above it was a heart, and above that was the letters, a big K and a C. Kelly Carmody, my son's initials, in front of a heart above my name. And I go, holy moly. And Denise goes, oh my God, look at that. And then Alan sat down, they moved his dishes away. In front of him was a giant A and a giant P next to each other, AP. His daughter's Ashley Peterson.
Oh my God.
And now Denise is going freaky. She goes, this is crazy. I can't believe this. How, we were just all verklempt and I can't believe this. Both of us got a sign. And then she got crying. She goes, well, where's my sign? She grabbed the dishes. There's no sign for my Sean. And we both looked sad. Well, you looked everywhere? Yeah. Oh, what about that little 6-pack over there? It's got the mustard and ketchup and all that stuff in it. And so she grabbed it and moved it. Underneath it said, I love Sean.
Oh.
With a D, with a capital D and a little I. And her name is Denise. And it was just, you try to narrow that down, 3 bereaved parents with their children's names on the table in the middle of a college university pizza place we'd never been to, and we're from different parts of the country. You can't make that up. And it was so wonderful. We still talk about that day. It's just so.
Well, yeah, we're going to have Open to Hope. They said they would do a workshop for us, so I talked to Heidi Horsley.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, it was nice to meet you all. I really enjoyed
Meeting
this.
you too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, look for my Facebook page. It'll take me a couple hours, but I'll make a PDF of the whole thing today, and it'll be on my Facebook, and you can grab it.
Thank you very much.
I know it's nice to have the notes, but I don't like to say that at the beginning, because note taking is important because of the note taking itself. It's cemented in the brain much better than reading it or anything else. That's why journaling is so important. It's cemented in the brain. So I'm glad you took notes.
Thank you.
Okay, God bless.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we were going to do the closing. Mary, where's Mary?
Right here.
Okay.
All right. By Iris Bolton. I don't know why. I'll never know why. I don't have to know why. I don't like it. I don't have to like it. What I have to do is accept it and go on living. The choice is mine. I can go on living, valuing every moment in a way I never did before. Or I can be destroyed by it and in turn destroy others. I thought I was immortal, that my family and friends were also. That tragedy happened only to others. But I know now that life is tenuous and valuable. So I am choosing to go on living, making the most of the time I have, valuing my friends and family in a way never possible before.
Keep coming back. Thanks again,
Thank
Mitch.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Betty. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Air
Melissa.
hug, air hug.
Yeah, virtual hugs.
Virtual hugs. Bye.
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 Have a good week.
You too.
You too, Lori.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too. Hey, Betty.
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry I missed the beginning.
That's
I have
okay.
it. I am so sorry I didn't know what time that I should be on. So
That's okay. No big deal. We're good. We're all
thank
good.
you. Good, good. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for putting it all together, Betty.
Yes.
And Melissa.
It's not me. It's a team effort. Melissa's 50% of what I do, she does. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for the support.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Betty.
Yep. And Melissa.